Why narcissists hunt empaths? Have you ever looked at one of the kindest people you know, maybe that person is even you, and wondered how they always seem to end up with the most toxic partners? It feels like some kind of cruel, cosmic joke, but it's not a coincidence. It's a hunt. If you're an empath, someone who feels everything so deeply, and you constantly find yourself in draining one-sided relationships, there's a very real psychological reason you're being targeted. Today we're going to pull back the curtain and expose it piece by piece. I'm Jason, a psychologist who has spent years studying personality disorders and relationship dynamics, and I've seen this pattern play out more times than I can count. It's a magnetic, yet completely destructive, pull between two polar opposite types, the narcissist and the empath. On one side you have the narcissist, someone with a grandiose sense of self, a desperate need for admiration, and a stunning lack of empathy. They move through the world with a deep, internal void. On the other side, you have the empath, a person who is highly attuned to the emotions of others, often absorbing them as if they were their own. They are natural givers, healers, and nurturers. On the surface, you couldn't find two more different people, but it's exactly that opposition that creates such a dangerous parasitic pull. The narcissist, in their endless search for validation, sees the empath not as a partner, but as a perfect resource. We're about to explore the core reasons why a narcissist needs an empath to survive, and how they turn an empath's greatest strengths into their most exploited vulnerabilities. The hunt. Why the empath is the perfect target. To really get this, we have to start with the narcissist's core motivation, something called narcissistic supply. The empath as an unending source of narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is the psychological fuel a narcissist needs to function. This isn't just a casual want. For them, it's a requirement. Because they often have an unstable or fluctuating sense of self-worth, they rely almost entirely on external validation, admiration, attention, and emotional energy to prop up their fragile ego. Think of it like a phone with a busted battery. It just can't hold a charge on its own, so they have to plug into an external source constantly. This is where the empath walks in. Empaths are, by their very nature, fountains of emotional energy. They're generous listeners, deeply compassionate, and have an instinct to soothe and validate those around them. A narcissist can spot this from a mile away. They don't see a person, they see a high-quality, renewable energy source. While other people might get drained or put up boundaries, an empath's first instinct is often to give more, to try harder, and to pour their energy into what they see as a wounded soul. The narcissist latches on, feeding off the empath's validation to feel powerful and important, all while the empath becomes more and more drained. The desire to heal becomes a trap. One of an empath's most beautiful qualities, their desire to heal others, is also what makes them vulnerable. When they meet a narcissist, they don't see a manipulator, they see a wounded bird. The narcissist is a master of crafting a victim narrative. They'll share a carefully edited story about a difficult past, of being deeply misunderstood, of emotional wounds that just need the right person to heal them. And that story, it's a siren song for an empath. It activates their deepest instinct to nurture and repair. The empath gets pulled into the belief that with enough love, patience, and understanding, they can fix the narcissist's pain. This becomes a powerful trap. The empath feels valued and needed because they have a mission in the relationship. They think, if I can just love them enough, they'll change. But the narcissist has no interest in changing. They are interested in being catered to. The empath's healing efforts just become another form of narcissistic supply, reinforcing the dynamic that the narcissist is the center of the universe, and the empath is their devoted caretaker. It's a dead-end street of giving everything to someone who has no intention of ever giving back. The narcissist needs to control and erase what they envy. This one is dark, but you have to understand it. Deep down, on a level they'd never admit, the narcissist is intensely jealous of the empath. They see in the empath everything they are not: genuine warmth, emotional authenticity, and a real capacity for love and connection. These qualities are a constant, painful reminder of the narcissist's own inner emptiness. Your very existence threatens their fantasy that they are the most special person in the world. And since they can't possess these traits, their only alternative is to control and diminish the person who does. This launches a campaign of psychological warfare designed to chip away at the empath's self-worth. Their primary weapon? Gaslighting. The narcissist will systematically deny the empath's reality, making them question their own feelings and sanity. You'll hear a constant refrain of things like, "You're too sensitive," "You're overreacting," or the classic, "That never happened." For an empath who is so tuned into emotional truth, this is profoundly destabilizing. They start to internalize the blame, believing they are the problem. By dimming the empath's light, the narcissist feels brighter in comparison. They feed on the power of watching someone they envy become a shell of their former self, dependent and full of self-doubt. If any of this is sounding painfully familiar, if you felt that emotional drain or found yourself questioning your own reality, please know you are not alone and it is not your fault. This is a recognized pattern of psychological abuse. And if this information is resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell. My goal is to give you the clarity and tools to understand these dynamics and finally reclaim your power. The escape and empowerment. How the empath wins. The relationship between a narcissist and an empath can feel like an endless downward spiral. But it does have a breaking point. The entire dynamic shifts the moment the empath has their great awakening. The turning point. When sensitivity becomes a superpower. For a long time, the empath is led to believe their sensitivity is a weakness. The narcissist has certainly framed it that way. But the turning point comes when the empath realizes that their sensitivity is actually a highly advanced detection system. It's the very thing that, once understood, allows them to see the manipulation for what it truly is. This often happens when the empath is completely depleted, emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausted. At this rock bottom, the fog begins to clear. The empath starts to see the patterns, the love bombing followed by devaluation, the constant gaslighting, the circular arguments that go nowhere. They realize the love they fought so hard for was never real. It was a performance. This realization is often followed by a surge of anger and grief. For empaths who are used to suppressing negative emotions, this anger can be scary, but it's also incredibly powerful. Anger is the emotion of a boundary being violated. When an empath finally allows themselves to feel that righteous anger, it becomes the fuel they need to stop making excuses for the abuser and start protecting themselves. The journey of healing begins when the empath finally turns their immense capacity for compassion inward toward themselves. Actionable steps to break free and heal. Once an empath has this awakening, the hunt is over. The power dynamic shifts forever. Here are the crucial steps to breaking the cycle and beginning to heal. Step 1. Go no contact and set ironclad boundaries. The most effective strategy for dealing with a narcissist is to cut off their access to you completely. No calls, no texts, no social media stalking. You have to starve them of the supply they crave. If no contact isn't possible, maybe due to co-parenting, you must practice what's called the grey rock method. You become as boring and unresponsive as a grey rock. You give short, factual answers with zero emotion. This makes you a terrible source of supply, and the narcissist will eventually lose interest and search for an easier target. Boundaries are not suggestions, they are your new rules for life. Step 2. Reconnect with your reality and your feelings. After being gaslit, you have to relearn how to trust yourself. Start a journal. Write down what you feel and experience each day, without judgment. This practice helps rebuild trust in your own perception. Reach out to trusted friends or family who can validate your experiences and remind you of who you were before the relationship. Seeking therapy with a professional who understands narcissistic abuse is also invaluable for processing the trauma and rebuilding your sense of self. Step 3. Admit you cannot save them. This is perhaps the hardest and most important step for an empath. You have to accept the profound truth that you cannot heal the narcissist. Their healing is their responsibility, and it's a journey most are unwilling to take. Your job is not to be their savior, your job is to be your own. By letting go of the fantasy that your love can change them, you liberate yourself. You can finally stop pouring your precious life force into a black hole and start investing it back into your own life, your own dreams, and your own happiness. The dynamic between a narcissist and an empath is a masterclass in psychological warfare, where the empath's greatest gifts, their compassion, their loyalty, and their deep capacity to love, are weaponized against them. They are hunted for their light because the narcissist, living in darkness, needs to consume that light just to feel alive. But the story doesn't have to end in depletion and despair. The moment an empath awakens to this truth, they begin the journey of reclaiming their power. Your sensitivity is not a curse, it is your greatest strength. It is a finely tuned instrument that, when you learn to read it correctly, can guide you away from harm and toward authentic, reciprocal connections. Healing from narcissistic abuse is about learning to offer yourself the same boundless compassion you so freely give to others. It's a journey from being an unconscious empath who absorbs the world's pain to a conscious empath who knows their worth, protects their energy, and understands that their light is not meant to be consumed, but to shine.